Hey everybody, it's Rob. Back to do another Proving Grounds practice machine walkthrough. Uh, the machine we're going to tackle this time is called Muddy. It's a Linux box. It's rated as easy and worth 10 points. And I'm not ashamed to admit that this box was very difficult for me. There are just some things that I'm good at and some things that I'm not good at. And some of the things in this box around the exploitation, I'm just not usually very good at it. It took me a couple of tries to get through this and a lot of Googling, to say the least. So without further ado, you can see I'm connected to Offsec's VPN, and there is the IP address of the machine, Muddy. And as always, the first thing that we do is we run a Nmap scan. So I did just that. We ran Nmap with service version detection, T4 aggressive scan all ports with Muddy's IP address, and this is what came back. So we have 22, waste of time, more than likely. 25 SMTP could be interesting. 80 is always interesting. 111 for RPC. 443, 808, 908, and 8888. Now, to me, 8888 looked pretty interesting because I saw this application called Layton in Python. So I determined that before I was going to try and mess around with SMTP, which is maybe not my strongest suit. It's not that hard, but you just don't. I just don't have a lot of practice with it. I figured I would go to 80, see what was there, and then maybe visit 443 and 8888 since there were some web pages that were potentially there. So let's do that. We're going to go to the web browser. We're going to drop in the IP address, which I believe I have here. We're going to hit enter. And this right off the bat is very interesting. It tells me that we need to add an entry to our hosts file for this domain muddy.ugc. This is fairly common in some of these CTF boxes and some other places where something's hiding behind a name resolution. So the easiest way to address that is to open up a terminal and go to the host file. If you don't know what the host file is, it is a file that traditionally DNS checks first, where you can hard code resolution, name resolution. Back in the day, it was the main method of resolution until it became so unwieldy and the internet grew so fast they had to come up with a better solution. And that was when DNS came about. But the host file is typically stored in etc hosts in a Linux system. So we're not going to CD, we're actually going to nano. And you have to be root because it's in the etc folder. Usually anything in the etc folder is a system configuration file, and you need to be root to edit it. So we'll enter our password. And it's as simple as this, and I actually have something we can just copy and paste in here. When you want to add an entry to the host file, you scroll down to the bottom and you drop in. You can either do, the best way to do it is just like this. I'm going to paste the clipboard, is to paste in the IP address, hit tab, which in this case only tabbed me over one space, and then put the host name you want to resolve that IP address to. So we want it to resolve to muddy.ugc. Okay, that's it. That's all you got to do. So just remember muddy.ugc. So Control O to save, Control X. Now we can even do stuff like ping muddy.ugc, and we'll get a response because it's actually pinging the IP address, and it's doing this magic because of the host file. We're going to hit Control C, and we're going to close this window. Now we're going to refresh this page, and now lo and behold we get a web page, and it looks like maybe it's some kind of blog or something. It's just not a whole lot going on. It looks like there's a search bar up here. Nothing found. Yeah, it's definitely, oh, here we go, WordPress. So just by typing something in the search bar, we just figured out that this is a WordPress site. So there's two things that I would typically do. But first, before we do those two things, because if it's a WordPress site, I would definitely run WP Scan or WordPress Scan, and we're going to definitely do some dir busting, which is looking for directories that are accessible via this website. Before we do that, though, we're going to check out some of these other websites, ports specifically. So the one that was really looked interesting to me was 8888. We're going to hit that. And here's that Layton service catalog. Now, it's interesting because I didn't know what this was. And it is an application that allows you to expose Python methods to internet protocols, or the internet essentially, right? So you can see here we have this thing called Muddy. Now, this is the reason why I started to go down this path, because this machine is called Muddy. If you've been doing this for a little while, you know sometimes the machine names give away a little bit. So I said, well, the machine's named Muddy for a reason. I'm going to spend a little time focused on Muddy. So we click on Muddy, and we get exactly what Layton advertises that it does. There's this method called checkout, which I'm assuming somebody who knows what to do with this would be able to do something with it. So it looks like there's Muddy, and then a method for Muddy is checkout. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind for now, because we have a couple of other things we need to do first. Namely, we're going to open up another window here, and we're going to do GoBuster, and we can do it right on the host name, because the actual domain name, because we have it in the host file, so we don't have to worry about using the IP address. We're going to do GoBuster. We're going to look for directories in the muddy.ugc site, and we're going to use the dir common text for the list. So I'm going to hit enter on that, and right away some interesting stuff starts popping up. While that's going on, we're going to open up another window, and we're going to do a WP scan on URL Muddy. Now, for those of you who don't know, WP scan is a WordPress scanner. And if you come across a WordPress site, definitely want to use this. One thing I would suggest you do is they offer up a free API key, and this tool is actually has a little bit more capability if you utilize an API key. Now the catch is it's a free API key, but you get, I think, 25 API requests a month, which is basically one a day, right? For free, hey, it's good enough, right? I mean, it's not like you're doing WordPress scans every day for the most part. So I would do that. I didn't do it for this walkthrough, but I do have a WP scan API key. Just go right to their website. You can sign up for a free API key. All right, so we're going to hit enter, and we're going to let WordPress scan run. Now we're going to go back, and we're going to see, okay, the dir busting's done, and we have found a lot of good information here. A lot of people who have done any kind of reading on security will know what these are. This means there's password protected directories and stuff. WebDAV, which can be thoroughly abused if it's not set up correctly. And then obviously some WordPerfect. God, that shows how old I am. Sorry about that. WordPress directories. Okay. So let's mess around a little bit here. Let's try and get to this WebDAV directory and see what happens. So we're going to go to the website again. muddy.ugc, and we're just going to, actually, let's put HTTP in front of it so Google doesn't think we're trying to do a search. And then we're going to do WebDAV. For those of you who don't know, WebDAV is basically a service protocol, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to manipulate files on a web server. Back in the day, if you remember Front Page for IIS, I believe it used WebDev, but it's still a very I mean, it's still utilized today, although it can be a nightmare if it's not set up correctly. So we get a login prompt for WebDev. So there's really nothing we can do there just yet. Let's see how our WordPress scan is going. And that's done. And right here, you can see down here, remember I was talking about that API token? You can definitely, they even give you the URL that you can visit to sign up for one. So highly encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to get API keys for a lot of things that are free. I think Shodan still gives you an opportunity to get a free one. There's a bunch of VirusTotal, you can get a free one. And there's a few other sites. I might do a video on that, actually. That's a good idea. Anyway, we went through this, and there's some stuff here, but nothing that I saw that was too interesting. There were some outdated themes, and I looked those up in SearchSploit. I looked up WordPress exploits, and there are definitely some out there for themes, but none of these themes were a part of that. So I didn't see anything too interesting there, but there's definitely a lot going on here with this Layden. Okay, so I decided that I was going to do some research on this Layden service that does the method exposure to internet protocols, and I did find some information. And here's probably a better explanation of what Layden does. Layden is a framework for exposing methods to several internet service protocols. Once a method is Laydenized, it is automatically served through all the interfaces that your Layden installation contains. Layden's interface implementations are added in a modular fashion to make it very easy to extend Layden's protocol support, and Layden runs on all major OSs. Okay. I did do some research and find this was very common. This popped up numerous times, where it's an XML eternal entity expansion, which means you can essentially do a request and manipulate that request to return information from the box that this framework is installed on that you should not have access to. So if you scroll down, I mentioned that Layden consists of a service or an object or class. Think of it that way, right? So for this proof of concept, they created this hello service.py. And then they created a checkout method. And they exposed that checkout method to the internet. And what they did was, you can see here. So you can see here where it basically uses this hello service.py, say hello, right? The say hello service. And then it has this say hello method. So the hello service uses the say hello method. And what they do is they pull the Etsy password file with this proof of concept. So I said, well, let's try that and see if this machine is vulnerable to this exploit. I was guessing it would be, but it took me a while to figure out how to set this up. Okay, because at first I didn't see this down here, and I was doing everything up here, and it just was not working. I changed it here, I changed it here, but I didn't change it down here, and it just would not work. Okay, so what I did was I just kept messing with it, and I actually will show you. I got the one that dumps the Etsy password file to work, and let me just pull that up. It's basically a very complicated curl request, and if you don't know, curl is a way to put and get files on a remote server, more often than not a web server. Okay. So let me copy this because I'm definitely not typing this. We're going to paste that on the clipboard, paste it off the clipboard, and I'm just going to go back here. And here you can see what it's doing. It's going to Muddy UGC 8888, which is the port that this service is running on. It's using the Muddy service with the checkout method, okay? And we're going to try and pull the Etsy password file. and then you have to make sure that you change this. I just missed it a couple of times where you have to make sure to check out, and then you have to modify this string down here. Okay, so I believe there's two places where you have to change checkout, and then there's two places where you have to change the actual URL that you are attempting to exploit. Okay, so if you've typed all this correctly and set it all up correctly, this should dump the Etsy password file. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, and you can see that it does. We have the Etsy password file from this machine. So this basically says, yes, this machine is vulnerable to this exploit. Now, if you remember, there was a login prompt for the webdav directory. So that I just couldn't put two and two together. Okay, I'm a little slow sometimes, and that added about half a day to this as well. Like, I just put this to the side and came back after doing more research and trying to figure this out. I found a couple of examples of how to exploit this particular vulnerability, and they gave some examples of what you would look for. One of them obviously was the password file. People were trying to drop the Etsy shadow file, other sensitive files on Linux systems. But according to my research, there was a potential to have this webdav password in a directory that was var www.html webdav / password passwddav. So what I did was, essentially, I just took this same request and I just replaced this with var www.html webdav / password.dev, right? So I have that, and I will copy and paste that curl statement in. Okay, so when we hit enter, this should work. It should dump the contents of that webdav file, which is right here. var www.html webdav passwd.dev. So we're going to hit enter, and it does. And you can see right here we have username administrant, and then this hash password, which I had to identify the hash, which is, again, I just didn't put two and two together. I should have known this was Apache, and it's an Apache password, but I just didn't. So I went to hashes.com. I used their hash identifier, and it definitely came back with a few different options, but the first one was Apache. So now that we have this, what I would do, or what I did, was I copied this password, and then I just created a file, nanohash.txt, pasted this in there, Control O, Control X, and then if you ever need to know what method or mode you need to use to crack a hash with Hashcat, you can actually do this. I believe hashcat help, and then what you can do in this case is I'm looking for an Apache password, and it will not show up. Case matters here, so if you type in Apache lowercase, it will not show up if it's uppercase. So what I usually do in this instance is I put a lowercase a, uppercase A in brackets, which is a regular expression, so it'll look for both versions. And then I hit enter. And you can see it comes back that Apache uses 1600. Now, if you wanted to look for NTLM, for example, NTLM is usually capitalized, so that's what we're going to do. You can see there's several versions of NTLM. The most common are NTLM version 1, which is 1000, and version 2, which is 5600. And then you have the Kerberos one that you'll probably use a lot. That's, I believe, 18200. Okay? But we're going to be using 1600 to crack this hash. So the way you do that is, you remember we created that hash.txt, so we're going to do hashcat, and the mode is going to be 1600. We want to crack hash.txt, and we're going to use the RockU word list. Okay, don't ignore this show. You would use show if you had cracked it already and you wanted to just see it again, right? So we're going to hit enter. Now this may take a minute. And we have a slight issue. Did I call that hash.txt, hashcat m1600 hash.txt? Do I have it? I might have cracked it already. Let's see. I did. So I did crack it already. So I have it saved it's probably a hidden file somewhere that stores the hashes that have been cracked. So that's why that didn't work, because it basically is saying, hey, dude, we already cracked it. I mean, how many times do you want to crack it? So like I said, you can just run that same command again with -- show, and it will show you the password that it cracked, which this password is sleepless. So now we have administrant sleepless for that webdav directory. Okay. Now, what I would do is let's just go visit that website again. Let's just go to, let's just see if we can refresh. Yes. So we'll type in administrant, which is an unusual username. And then the password, the cracked password is sleepless. Aha. So we have an index of webdav. And now that we have the username and password, you remember what I told you. WebDAV is used to manipulate files on a web server, which means you can get files on a web server. So there's several ways you can do this. I just decided to stick with curl. I guess you can kind of figure out what's coming next. I'm going to use a PHP web shell to basically upload a reverse shell. That's what we're going to do. Okay. So let me just see. I believe it's cd etsy web. Etsy. I can't remember where the web shells are stored on Kali Linux. So web shell on Kali Linux. It's in user share web shells. Actually, if you've never visited the Kali.org website, they have a breakdown on everything. So this is a fabulous resource if you've never visited before. So you can, if like they have Windows binaries, they have web shells, and they'll explain all of it here. So you can see there's ASP, ASPX, CFM, JSP, Perl, PHP, which we're going to be using PHP. So we just got to remember it's in user share web shells. I can never remember that directory. So we'll cd, and I'll just show you user share web shells. And if you do an ls, we would use PHP. So we go PHP ls. We're going to use the PHP reverse shell .php. Now I already have one. I just keep what I never manipulate these. These are what I would just say like the gold standard image. I just copy it to my home directory and modify that one. So I have one in my tools directory already that we can modify. So let's go there. So we'll go cd tools, and then I think cd shells, yes, ls. We have PHP reverse shell. So you always got to modify these. They're not going to work out of the box, right? So we want to do nano PHP reverse shell.php. And typically with this, it's pretty straightforward. All you're going to have to do is change the IP address you want the web shell to connect back to. So you can see we have my IP address in here. I had to change that, and it's port 1234. So if you want to use a different port, you can change that, but it's by default configured to use port 1234. Okay, so we'll Control X, and we're in this directory now, right? We're in the directory where that shell exists. I have a curl statement set up to basically send this up to the webdav directory, and I will explain the command before I hit enter. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in here because I hate typing these long commands. All right. So you can see we have curl, and we want to put a file, which is php reverseshell.php, on muddy UGC in the webdav directory. And then here's my credentials, right, that I'm going to use to be able to do this. You wouldn't be able to do this unless you're authenticated. As you saw, that directory was password protected. Okay, so we have administrant and sleepless. Now, when we click, when we hit enter, that PHP reverse shell will be uploaded to that directory. We can go back to that directory, and all we would have to do is click on that file. But first, you would set up a netcat listener, and as soon as you click on that file, you should get a reverse shell. Okay, so we're going to hit enter, and it says right here, a lot of stuff printed, but it tells you right here, PHP reverse shell has been created. So it's essentially sent this file or recreated the file, or however curl works. Okay, that file is now up there. So if we come back to the web directory and we look at index of webdav, when we do that, now you can see that PHP reverse shell file is there. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to make this a little easier for you to see so it happens in real time. Okay, we're going to do, in this terminal window, we're going to do netcat. And remember, it's on port 1234. So we're going to hit enter. So now it's listening on port 1234. When we click on this reverse shell PHP, it's going to stall. You're going to see it's churning. And we're going to get a reverse shell. Fingers crossed. Okay, so we click on that and bam, we have a reverse shell. Now, you can see this is not a root shell. So we are not root. We are, well, we can see who we are. We can type, who am I? We're www data, right? So the first thing we could do is make this a little prettier and a little bit more informative, because when you do this, you'll see what directory you're in and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll do bin bash I, and now we can see who we are and what directory we're in. Okay, I'm going to do an ls, and we're in, it looks like we're in root right now. So the first thing I would do is I would go to the, I would look for the user flag, because I'm guessing there's a user flag. Usually when there's no method to get directly to root and you have to privesc, there's going to be two flags, okay? And it's not here. So I would look, www data is a web account. So let's go to cd var www html. Let's see if there's anything here. No, let's go back one. Oops. Yep, there it is. So cat local.txt. Essentially, we're in www's home directory, if you think about it, right? So there's the user flag. So now we can say we are 50% done, okay? And what, it's interesting, you see how this looks like it's stalled out? That's how you know a shell's going to work, usually, when that happens. We're going to make this bigger again. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, there's a lot going on, but not, there's not, like, for history, all you see is what I've done, sudo-l. There's nothing, right? Unfortunately. If there were sudo commands that we could run with no password, or if the LD preload was set incorrectly, we would see it here. There's not a whole lot that I saw going on that I could figure out. So what do you do when you have a Linux machine and you need to find privesc? you get linps going, right? So what I did was, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably go to the temp directory, because that's the safest place to be able to run stuff. There's nothing in there. And we're going to get linps on this machine. So if you've watched any of my videos, you know we're going to open up a directory. We're going to go cd tools linps. So cd. I gotta make sure I'm in my home directory, cd tools. There there it is, cd linpeas ls. Okay, so we have linpeas.shell. Easiest way to get this to that other machine is to just do the old Python 3 module http.server 8000 and hit enter. Now we go back to the machine with the exploited shell on Muddy, and we do wget http my IP address and it's port 8000, and we want linpeas.shell. All right, so now we do chmod u plus x linpeas.shell to give it executable permissions, and then we're going to run linpeas, okay, .shell. And again, linpeas is fabulous. I can already see CVEs that it's talking about. Oh, I see yellow and red, which if you've watched any of my videos, you know we need to be looking for yellow and red is what you really need to pay attention to. Yellow and red are going to get you escalation and exploitation. So, all right, let's see what that yellow was. Scroll back up to the top, start scrolling down. Okay. What do we got? Oh, var temp late and muddy. User bin cron tab. Let's see. All right. So there's a couple of things going on here. Let's see. This is a problem because this is not a standard path directory. So that means the way Linux works is if you execute a command, it's going to start looking at it for it in your path from the left and then move to the right. So let's see if we can investigate that. Ooh. Look at this. I just noticed this too. I forgot about this. This is important. So it looks like root is running netstat every minute of every day. That actually is a major problem too, because remember what I just said about commands being executed in the path from left to right. So netstat, unless netstat is in that directory, let's look at this directory and see. It looks like because it's flagging this, we probably have write permissions in that directory. So the way that to abuse this would be to either create a binary or some other file that runs in the place of netstat. So let's just take a look real quick. So dev shm. Let's go to that directory and see what's going on there. So cd dev shm. Let's do an ls. There's nothing in there. Let's do cd dot dot. Let's do ls. Okay, so ls ail. And let's just look at that shm directory. Oh yeah. Everybody's got read, write, and executable permissions on that, and it's got the sticky bit set. So if you don't know what the sticky bit is, the sticky bit means that only root basically only the owner of the files can delete their files in there. So let's hope that let's hope that they're not, that netstat is not in there. So let's, I don't think it was because we just were in there and there was nothing in there. So we'll just go cd shm, and then maybe we'll just to do a little proof of concept here, we'll go touch test.txt lsail. Yep. We have full control in this directory basically. So that's the way that this is going to get exploited. We're going to do I'm probably going to do a MS Venom Linux executable that just creates a reverse shell. And because that netstack, and I'm just going to name it netstat and put it in this directory. And because the path is being searched from left to right, and this is the first directory in the path, I hope that you understand that because this is important. That's why the path was yellow and red. The path is searched from left to right. So if you have a directory that everybody can read, write, and execute files in at the very start of your path, that means anybody can put any executable in there, name it whatever they want. And if you try to run a command of that same name, right, if that's the path, it's going to execute that file instead of the correct file. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put netstat in here. And hope for the best. So let's go back to, actually, let's kill that one. Let's go back to where we're hosting that file. And we'll actually do it here again so we can just redo the web server and ship the file over that way. So Control C. If you've never used MS Venom, it's part of the Metasploit framework, and it allows you to create payloads that don't necessarily have to use the Metasploit framework. So if you look, I'm going to copy a payload over here that I came up with, and it's very simple. It's just MS Venom, and the payload is going to be a Linux reverse shell, not a interpreter shell. We're not using Metasploit. I'm personally a big fan of Metasploit, but I'm trying to avoid using it because they really are a pain in the butt about it on the OSCP exam, so I don't want to become too dependent on Metasploit. So you're always going to see me try to do these things the manual way or the non-Metasploit way. I got to imagine, though, as a penetration tester, you're going to use whatever tool is best for the job. And if it happens to be Metasploit, then so be it. But this is basically generating a Linux reverse shell. This is my IP address. I wanted to connect back to this IP address. This port, and then the file, this is a Linux executable file, and we want the output file to be named netstat because that is the file that is being run every minute of every hour of every day in cron by root on that box. Okay, I hope that's clear. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try and help you. Okay, so when I hit this, it should create the executable for us. Fingers crossed. Okay, and it looks like it did. So we have netstat in there. So now we just redo this Python server. We go back to the muddy box, and now we do wget, again, http 192.168.45. 181, right? Yeah, 181 is my IP address. We want 8000, which is the port we're running it on, and we want netstat. Okay, we're going to do ls, and netstat is there. So we may have already missed an opportunity, but because it's running that cron job every minute. So let's just set up a netcat listener, and this should be on port 444. So NLVP port 444, and we should catch a shell here. It may take a minute depending on when we started this bad boy. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and we'll see. So come on, baby. I'm going to pause the video for a second while we wait for this show. Okay, I figured out what is wrong, and I'm an idiot. So if I come back to this screen over here, if I do ls-ail, you can probably guess what I forgot to do. I forgot to make this netstat executable. So we got to do chmod u plus x netstat, and I have my listener running. Okay, so we're going to hit enter, ls-ail, and now we wait and hope that this listener catches us a show. And honestly, I might want to do this. I just thought about it because I'm not running this as root, so I need to make this, the better way to do this would be chmod 777, which gives everybody read, write, and execute. Sorry about that, because I forgot. It actually gave me the root. That's pretty funny. Let's see. Who am I? Root. So it did work. Okay, perfect. We just had to wait long. We didn't wait long enough. But for some reason, I thought, no, you know why? Because I'm an idiot. I own the file, so it's running as me. Anyway, now we do bin dash I, and we can do cd root ls cat proof.txt. So there's the flag. So you can see even after I've been through this box, it's still, you got to still think these things through. And as I was waiting for that shell to run, I'm still thinking, why isn't this working? It's because it takes a minute. I may have caught it after it just ran when I made that thing executable, and I had to wait an entire minute for it to run it again. Okay, but the way this box was exploited was that XML vulnerability with the latent program that exposes methods to HTTP to internet protocols. We abused that to pull down the WebDAV directory credentials. We logged into WebDAV. We uploaded a PHP reverse shell. We got onto the machine. We ran linps. We found out that the path was configured insecurely and incorrectly and allowed a directory to be at the beginning of the path that basically everybody had read, write, and execute permissions to. We also saw that root was running netstat every minute of every day for some reason, whatever that reason may be in cron. Okay, so the way to abuse that for privesc was to create a binary called netstat, place it in that directory dev.shm, which was the first directory that Linux is going to look for this executable in, because it's the leftmost in the path. And when that cron job runs, as long as we have a reverse listener set up, that netstat will now execute our payload and connect to us via that reverse shell. So this box was tough, man, for me. It beat the crap out of me. It's still beating the crap out of me. Even just explaining some of this stuff is very hard. So I really, really appreciate people who have left comments and who, have even just watched the video. I hope that this is helping somebody. That's my goal. I know it's helping me, because when I go through these boxes and have to explain everything, that cements in my brain how these things work. So it's been very helpful for me. So anyway, that's how we exploited Muddy. I got a couple more videos lined up for you guys that are going to be some tips and tricks videos as well as walkthroughs. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next video.